Good morning, everybody. Welcome to this virtual career talk by the Visiola Foundation. We're so excited that you are joining us to learn about career opportunities and the various options that exist within the renewable energy sector. We are delighted to have with us this morning a trustee of the Visiola Foundation and a mentor to our students, Mr. Obiora Okoye. He is managing partner of Blackaion Capital, an advisory and investment firm that does quite a bit across Africa in renewable energy. He is an experienced investor. He's worked with General Electric in Nigeria, the African Development Bank, Mart Resources, which is a Canadian E&P company, as well as Guarantee Trust Bank, a commercial bank in Nigeria. He has invested over $4 billion and worked on both small and large-scale energy generation, transmission, and distribution projects in a number of African countries. In his current capacity as co-founder and managing partner at Blackaion Capital, he effectively works across project development for small to medium scale opportunities in the midstream gas processing and logistics sectors, as well as off-grid renewables and gas-fired power generation. He's played a number of roles working with USAID's Private Capital and Micro Enterprise Group, where he helped to design the United States presidential initiative called Power Africa to support African countries in increasing their available power supply. This was back in 2013. Through that initiative, he helped to mobilize about $20 million in commitments to the equity window of the Sustainable Energy Fund for Africa, SAFA, which is a clean energy fund that's administered by the African Development Bank. Mr. Okoye holds an MBA from the University of Chicago Booth, as well as a Master in Science degree in Energy Finance from the University of Dundee, and a Bachelor of a BA basically in Economics with Accounting and Finance from Oxford Brookes University. He is very happily married to a wonderful woman, Mrs. Leslie Okoye, and they have two wonderful children. So Obi, thank you so much again for joining us, and the floor is yours to share and talk about your education and professional experience.
All right, thank you, Lade, and everyone else who's joined. First of all, I want to wish everybody a happy Eid. So I know that everybody should be at home relaxing, and I hope you guys get to eat some ram over this coming days. Okay, so I'll just go straight through the presentation. Let's see. Right, so I'm going to do this presentation in two parts. I think I'm going to start off with talking a little bit about myself, what kind of early influences I had in my career direction. I kind of talk through my career path, and then I kind of wanted to let people kind of ask questions at that point. And then we can go into the second part, which is just looking at the renewable energy opportunity in the region, Nigeria and the rest of the subcontinent, looking at what kind of skills are required. And then I can just share my lessons and some of the experiences that I've had, which I think may be useful for you as you're designing your career paths and your futures. So just again, Ladi did a very great job of the introduction, so I probably don't need to do another introduction, but yes, I've sort of spent most of my career in the energy and infrastructure space over the last 20 years now. I've invested across the value chain, in the energy value chain. So from power, oil and gas, flaring gas, but I've also done some other infrastructure in technology and looking at healthcare. I'm very passionate about the development space. I understand the impact of having power can have on people's lives, on the lives of just the everyday ordinary citizens, both people living in the rural areas, people living in urban cities, the impact on businesses. So, I think it was a space that was very interesting to me from very early on, and I'll talk a little bit about that. I had the amazing opportunity to work on the design of the Power Africa Initiative, which was a US government initiative in Washington, D.C. I think that also kind of showed me sort of the excitement about what can be done in the power space in Africa. And if we follow the telecoms trajectory of how the telecom penetration happened, I think there's a huge opportunity to kind of leapfrog in innovation in power as well. So I think that's very, very interesting that I'll also talk about. So I started Blackaion Capital, which is an investment advisory firm. It was co-founded by myself and one of my partners, who I hope is on the call listening. We were both at General Electric at the time, and we kind of worked on various things together, and we just had a very natural fit, both in terms of our career experiences, but also in our personalities. And we just said, okay, look, we wanted to follow this new, help develop this new venture to do something on our own in the energy and infrastructure space. So, and we started that about a year ago now. So yeah, my educational backgrounds, I studied across Nigeria, the UK, and the USA, as Ladi has already alluded to. So I'll get a little bit more into my educational background. So this picture is a bit of my timeline. I was born in October 1977, same as my partner, by the way, which is a bit of a coincidence. But yeah, but according to my parents, I came in very smoothly. So I was not a problem child like some people might think. And so the next picture, going through the right, my next picture is my four brothers. So that's me on the absolute left. You have Arinze, my youngest, next to me, my immediate younger brother, Ugo, who's into engineering and technology, and my oldest brother, Felix, who's a lawyer by profession. I'm married, as Ladi talked about, happily married, and she's very good friends with my wife. She's into the beauty industry and cosmetics and personal well-being and stuff like that. And together we have 2 kids. And the below pictures are just pictures of me graduating. I can see I'm holding a beer in my hand. I think I was very excited to be graduating from A-levels and going to university. And yeah, so that's a great picture of some of my classmates and I on our graduation ceremony. And then the other graduation is from university. For my undergrad, I went to the Oxford Brookes University in the UK. I studied economics and accounting and finance, and I'll go into some of why I studied what I did and how that's panned out since then. Okay, next slide. So early influences. When I was a kid, I used to love drawing. I was a kid that you didn't really need to find something for me to do. There was a program on television called Secret City by Mark Kistler back in the early 90s. And he had this program on NTA. He would come out and draw. I don't know if any of you guys are old as me to remember that particular program, but I used to just sit down in front of the television and he taught you how to draw in 3 dimensions. And I was so fascinated by it. And I would literally every day after school, that's what I was doing. And I think, so I always thought I was going to end up as an artist. I don't know where in the art world I would have landed, but I started off in art. Then the next picture in the middle on the top is my grandfather. So the late Chief F.G. Okoye. He was a businessman, entrepreneur, philanthropist. He was a serial entrepreneur, owned multiple businesses, but his biggest business was construction. So he owned a construction company. And when we would spend time with him, he always saw me drawing and was like, what is this guy doing? What does he think he can do with his career as an artist? So he convinced my parents to, kind of force me into architecture, technical drawing. So if you like to draw, we need an architect in the family. So why don't you become an architect? And I was like, well, as long as I get to draw, and they bought me this really nice fancy TD set, I was like, okay, I'll give it a go. And I kind of liked technical drawing. It taught me a lot of things around the rules and limitations of how physics works, because you're trying to transpose certain logic into drawing, and it took a little bit away from the kind of free will, drawing anything, no limits, no boundaries. But with technical drawing, there were so many rules and regulations of how things can work and how physics works. And so once I enjoyed it, I just didn't like the full flexibility. The sort of the constraints with technical drawing. But I'll go back into that. But anyway, I was excited I still got to draw. And so that was me moving from just freelance art into TD. Then I think sometime in 1992, I can't remember, I think it was maybe summer of 1992, my mom used to be on the board of the Port Harcourt refineries in Nigeria. So she took us on a family tour of the facility. And I think that was the first time I really saw a large infrastructure project. I mean, the place just, I was gobsmacked. I was so shocked by the size and sheer scale of what a refinery looks like. And, when they were explaining to us what a refinery does, it takes, raw oil and it distills it into different petroleum products. I was just amazed by the whole thing. And even just the computer systems that managed such a huge, complex process and industrial process, I was very, very amazed. And I think that's something that always stuck to me as I thought about my career going forward. I was like, wow, this whole energy sector sounds very interesting. And I thought, okay, maybe I wanted to do something in oil and gas. And so that was some of the things that laid some early foundations for my career. Now, I schooled in Lagos. I went to St. Saviour's Primary School and then Corona Primary School here in Ikoyi. Then I went to, my dad passed away actually when I was around 5 years old, and we moved to Enugu for a year because to be closer to my grandfather. My dad was a lawyer. My mom was also a lawyer. So I think my mom having to manage five rascally kids, she sent us to the East for a year while she was sorting out herself. And then we came back to Lagos, and then I finished off primary school and went to Atlantic Hall Secondary School in Maryland, in Ikeja. And I think, it was a great experience. It was the time when I was kind of really moving into to figure out my career. My mom used to tell my teachers then, like, he must study technical drawing, he must be good at technical drawing. And I remember him saying that, look, to be good at technical drawing, and if you want to become an architect, you have to be good in physics. So I said, okay, I have to learn physics. I have to be good at physics and be good in the sciences if I wanted to become an architect. So I took on physics more seriously. I remember my teacher saying to me, now that I know what your parents want you to do, I'm going to force you to do very well in physics. So I kind of did the whole physics and sciences and went down that path. But after my SSCs, when I looked at my grades, I did pretty well in most of my subjects, to be honest with you. But the ones I passed with relative ease were things like economics, geography, maths. It just came more naturally to me. Even though I did well in physics and technical drawing, I just remembered the amount of work I'm having to lock myself down in my room for days trying to understand it. And I felt like if I was going to do this as, for the long term, I just don't know if I had the desire to stay very, very, very high in physics and technical drawing. So I said, okay, look, I'm still interested in economics. I'm still interested in geography. I like maths. So I'm sure I'm going to find something else that I can do that is not architecture using those skills. And then, so that was back in 1995. In 1995, I graduated from Atlantic Hall. So my parents sent us to the UK to study A-levels at a school called Kent College in Canterbury. And I think that school really impacted my choice of career, because I had an economics teacher called Mr. Williams, and the way he taught economics and just the way his approach to learning really, really stuck to me. And I just really kind of started enjoying economics, and which is a social science, to be honest with you. But it was the way he taught it, the way that there was an economics club. We had to debate things. There were things that came out in the newspapers, and then you teach something in class, it came out in the papers about something that the Bank of England was doing, or something that the Treasury Secretary was doing, and then you'd have to debate based on what you were learning in class. Like, what does this mean? What does this monetary policy mean, or this fiscal policy? So it was quite a great learning experience, and I kind of started really enjoying doing social sciences and a little bit more. There was a conservation club, and that was part of our extracurricular activities. We had to engage in things like street cleaning, community cleaning, and recycling. So that's also something that kind of got me into the whole sustainability space, and just trying to understand the value of protecting the environment. There were other things like the Duke of Edinburgh, which is like, you go on expeditions, you can go on hiking trips and camping, and you go into very, very rough terrain. Sometimes you go all the way to Scotland and go on all these treks. And it really just showed me how, and we would be kind of put into different groups, and people would lead different groups, and you'd have to figure out in your little group which is the best path to take. How do you want to ensure safety and security of all your group members? And it was just like a bit of an adventure. And I think that was one of the things that really got me into being an adventurous person generally with my career and trying different things. And then rugby. Rugby was a sport that I used to play. It's like American football, if you don't know what rugby is, but it's without all the protection, so it's a little bit more tough. You have to be really tough to play rugby. But yeah, so I kind of played rugby. And again, rugby was, the coach of our rugby team was an engineer, and his methods of teaching you your strategy was always sounded like an engineering course, where he used to draw the different connections, diagrams, how the curvature of the ball when you kick the ball. So it was quite interesting to see you learning a sport, but always taught from what I thought was a scientific approach to things. So I think all these influences kind of started driving me into social science, and started driving me to do more in looking at sustainability and looking at things like that. So I think I was quite clear to me that when I went to university, I would go and do something in social science, and that's exactly what I did. I got into the Oxford Brookes universities. I did 3 A levels. At A levels, I did maths, geography, and economics. And so when I was choosing my universities, I was looking for the schools that had the best economics centers. And actually, I wanted to study 100% economics. But the school that was my first choice didn't allow you to do 100% economics. You have to combine it with something else. So I still kind of looked around. Again, my grandfather from Enugu was calling and saying, look, that economics, what does an economics do? That he should do accounting and do finance, at least combine those core technical skills with economics. Don't just go and do economics. I said, okay, I'm going to do accounting and finance. But I just thought economics was something that I really appreciated. I really, really enjoyed statistics and probability. And so I just thought I wanted to work in some field or some shape or form in doing something in economics. But then I had to do accounting. So, but I didn't, because I went to university trying to only do economics, I kind of focused on economics when I was in uni, to be honest with you. I didn't pay as much attention to economics, to finance and accounting. So my grades, if you look at my university grades, I got mostly A's in my economics, and I was basically just barely passing accounting and finance, because I just thought I was just doing it because my parents asked me to do accounting. But then I graduated from the UK. It was 2000 at this point. I was looking for what to do in my career, and I think Nigeria had just gained its democracy with Obasanjo administration in 1999. So I was like, wow, everybody was talking about the whole change coming into Nigeria. Nigeria was the future, that we have democracy once again, the military regime is over. So I was quite keen to come back to Nigeria straight away. I was like, look, why am I trying to find a job in the UK when I can come back to Nigeria and be part of this new generation of democratic wave, and how we're going to change Nigeria? I was one of these young, ambitious people who are going to come and change Nigeria. So I came back straight to Nigeria in 2000, and I started working in finance. And I went into Guarantee Trust Bank to do my NYSC, and again, he kept on looking at my background, and I was like, okay, accounting. So this accounting thing kept on coming back. It was like, I wanted to do economics. I couldn't. It kept on shifting me back to accounting. I wanted to do art. It kept on shifting me to architecture. I said, okay, look, let me try and gain these technical skills in accounting. And during the Guarantee Trust Bank's training program, I actually came first in accounting, and I was shocked. And I was like, okay, so, because I was like, if I don't do well in accounting, I'm going to give up banking. But because I came first in accounting, I said, okay, clearly, it's not that difficult. It's not rocket science. So I ended up, kind of getting really, and once I understood accounting, it became quite easy for me in my banking career. And then so I did GTB. I think I worked in GTB for, I think, so this is basically my career path that I'm talking about. I did GTB for a couple of years from 2001 to 2003. It was great. I worked with some amazing people. My boss was a guy called Tosin Rumshewe, who is now running a healthcare company. But I was doing more in money market. And I wasn't very excited about money market, fixed income, commercial papers. I wanted to do something more in investments. And so I kind of started looking out for different opportunities to do stuff in investments. Then I kind of worked with a company called AC&E Partners. It was a US private equity firm that got a deal to work with the Nigerian government in building a scheme called the Privatization Share Purchase Loan Scheme. So basically the scheme was, the government was privatizing different Nigerian assets. There was a lot of criticism that the government was not, or the process was not inclusive, that the ordinary Nigerians was not benefiting from this privatization. So the idea of this share purchase loan scheme was that we would lend money to the ordinary Nigerian. You know, I think the maximum loans were somewhere between 10 to 20,000 naira at the time. And so we were trying to create this platform that would give people money to buy shares in companies being privatized. And so that was a great learning experience for me. They talked again about privatizing the refineries. So this was my second interaction with the refineries, right? I went there on a family tour, and then now they're talking about privatizing the refineries. And so I was part of the team looking at evaluating how we would privatize the refineries and what percentage of the refineries will we offer to the ordinary general public, and how much will we offer to a core investor. So things like that. But it's like, you know, that's what it's kind of reawakening my whole interest in energy space. Then after doing that for a couple of years, I got an opportunity to work for a Canadian oil and gas exploration company, which had just come to Nigeria. It was called March Resources. Again, I said, okay, this is naturally a natural project transition for me. I was kind of keen on the energy space. Oil and gas is something that was quite, I mean, it's the economy of Nigeria, right? So I wanted to be part of that. It was great seeing everything from the beginning of starting an oil and gas company, the drilling, the guys who are obviously most valuable actually in an energy company like that were the geologists and the engineers, right? The drilling engineers, the production engineers, all those guys, you know. And I was coming in as a commercial accounting person, and I felt, wow, these guys I'm in an energy company, so you're always going to be more valued as an an engineering person in an energy company. So I felt like, right, it was great that I got exposure to all the commercial and accounting and stuff, but I wanted to go back to school to study a little bit more about the energy sector. I had learned a lot from my job, but my job was very, very commercial. It was like contracting. So I was kind of dealing with ExxonMobil or Halliburton or Schlumberger, who are providing services, and I was part of the team negotiating those contracts for services. And I was like, I'm learning about the contracting, but I'm not learning about the energy sector as such. I just didn't understand how the whole energy value chain worked, and I wanted more formal training. And because it was a new company, even though they were well financed, they were more interested in finding oil than in training people. So I said, okay, look, I'm just going to go out and see if I can get some formal training in the oil and gas space. And then I went to the Center for Energy and Petroleum and Mineral Law at the University of Dundee in Scotland. It was a great experience, and I'm going to come back to that. So I did that it was a one-year program. From there, I went to the African Development Bank in Tunisia. That's where I obviously met Lade, who is obviously the founder of the Visiola Foundation. And it was obviously a great experience, and I'll go into that. I went and did an MBA at the University of Chicago. That was me just saying, okay, look, I had spent a lot of time in the energy space, and I wanted to get more management training. So that was basically what kind of led to me doing an MBA. Then I went from the MBA, General Electric, in their project development and investment team. The idea of that role was General Electric was trying to help local companies in Nigeria who hadn't got a lot of experience in developing power projects. So the idea is that we will come into the project with you, we will invest alongside with you. Obviously, you will have to use GE technology for whatever the project was. And so that was a great experience also. I did that for 5 years before co-founding Blackaion Capital last year. So that's just a very quick sort of overview of my career path. But I think when you're talking about renewable energy, there are two main, when you look at this whole list, there are two key things that I think are what ultimately drove my interest in power and renewables. And if you remember what I said earlier, the reason I went to do my master's in Scotland was to learn about the oil and gas sector. But I came out of that program learning something completely different and changing my career path forever. So I'll just go into that. So the University of Dundee, basically, and I said, I went in to learn about the petroleum sector. I wanted to understand how oil and gas worked, why oil prices are fluctuating, $100 oil and back. I didn't understand the economics of that. I wanted to understand the technical aspects of oil and gas. How is actually oil produced? What are the engineering aspects? What are the opportunities to understand all these things? Because yes, from a commercial point of view, you need to understand, the engineering part to really understand the commercial part. So I just needed to kind of get a rounded appreciation of oil and gas. But what happened was that because it was an energy course, it was not a petroleum course, it was an energy course, they taught you about the whole value chain of the energy sector. So you started off with gas, oil and gas production, and it did midstream, which is the transportation and refining of petroleum products, and then the downstream aspects, which includes power generation. And I never really thought about power generation being, I hadn't put the whole value chain together. And I said, wow, okay, yeah, of course, power, because a lot of the power we generate in Nigeria, for instance, comes from oil and gas production. But then when I started looking at the downstream, I started realizing that there was a lot of other options for generating power outside oil and gas. There was obviously hydro, there's solar, there's wind, there's so many other technologies that I had never really understood. So I was like, okay. But it was also a time, I think this was 2007, there was also a time where the whole global economy was moving towards sustainability, and we kept on hearing about the the different Copenhagen agreements, the UN CDM initiative. So there were just so many of these initiatives trying to limit the use of hydrocarbons. And I'm like, okay, so I'm here learning about hydrocarbons, but the whole world seems to be shifting towards sustainability and renewable energy. Maybe I should look more into where the whole world is heading, right? I'm going to look into this whole sustainability aspect. And then I found out myself, and one of the great things about the school is that for every subject you did, you had to write a research paper on that topic. So if you look at all the research papers I wrote, most of them had to do with sustainability, and I kind of highlighted a few of them here. So one of the research papers I wrote was on the economic analysis of the RTFO. Basically, the RTFO was the Road Transport Fuel Obligation. The UK government imposed a law that made anybody who was selling fuel, basically petrol, to the transport sector, that at least 5.75% of that fuel had to come from a renewable source, basically biofuel, right? So I thought it was very, very interesting that even the governments are trying to limit petrol in people's cars. They want to even move towards more sustainability in the petrol we put in our cars. So I did a benefit and cost analysis to say, okay, look, this obviously is a new policy that has a cost. Is the cost of doing this sustainable? So I was kind of looking at the cost and the benefits of doing that. The other thing I looked at was at carbon credits. What are carbon credits? How can carbon credits be used as a security for financing CDM projects? And a CDM project is essentially a project that basically generates carbon credits. So you might have a project that's, because it's sustainable. Sometimes sustainable projects are not as cost compatible with hydrocarbon projects. So the governments have come up with different incentives to make you want to do these sort of renewable projects. And then basically those projects could earn carbon credits. And then you could then use those carbon credits and sell them or securitize the cash flows that came from those carbon credits. So that's something else I looked at. And then for my dissertation, I actually did a paper that I looked at if we took all the mini hydro sites in Nigeria, right? I think I looked at about 40 or 50 hydro sites, mini and small scale hydro sites in Nigeria. I said, okay, if we kind of pull all these mini hydro sites together, could we aggregate them to create carbon carbon credits, which are called certified emissions reductions, right? So you have these emissions reductions, you could sell them in Europe. So let's say ExxonMobil in the UK. ExxonMobil in the UK might have a regulation that it can only emit a certain level, right? So they put a cap on how much companies can emit. So what the companies started doing was that they would go and buy these carbon credits from projects so that they could emit more. So basically what it was saying is like, if you're going to emit more, if you're going to cause more emissions above a certain level, you have to pay for carbon credits, because by paying for carbon credits, you're sort of mitigating or you're offsetting, basically as an offset, you're offsetting the carbon that you're releasing to the environment. So that's how the whole carbon market was sort of created. And I found that whole thing very, very exciting. And then I also learned about an analysis tool for evaluating clean energy projects. And the whole thing was just, this whole thing was new to me. But there was one thing that was a constant theme during all these research papers I was writing. The World Bank, IFC, African Development Bank, literally on every single project I was researching, those companies or those institutions kept coming up. So I was like, wow, I need to go and work for one of these companies, right? I need to find a way to get into the African Development Bank. I need to find a way to get into World Bank or IFC, because those are the guys who are doing all these projects I kept on researching across Africa. So I made my applications, and unfortunately, I got into the African Development Bank's Young Professionals Program. So I want to talk a little bit more about the program. The program was basically a 3-day interview process. It was one of the most grueling interviews I've ever done. The program basically takes in 20 people every year from across the world. I think there are about 81 countries that can apply globally. And so it's a very, very highly competitive program. And that's also the program that Mrs. Araba also attended. And that's how actually we met at the African Development Bank. But so going through this program, it was basically they'd fly you out to Tunisia, you do the 3-day interview, and they let you know if you came in. So, to be honest with you, I'd never been to North Africa at that point. It was a completely different world. My wife at the time, who was my girlfriend, was thinking that I must be crazy if I think I'm going to go and get a job in North Africa, in Tunisia, a Muslim country. We were obviously being Christians, but I was like, look, I don't know. It's an adventure. It's something new. I like to learn. I like to try different things. Let's go and see the country. If it works out, it works out. If it doesn't, at least I'd have said I've been to North Africa, right? So that was how I approached the whole thing. But when I got there and I saw the people, right, I was amazed how smart, just the amount of brain power in that institution. I said to myself, you know what, just being around these people will make you a lot smarter, because they will force you to raise your game. And that's something I was quite excited about, right? Learning from different people and learning from teams that were very, very, very high achieving teams. And I'll talk about it later on in my presentation about surrounding yourself with people who are just as motivated as you, because you keep pushing each other to be your best self. But yeah, so the Young Professionals Program was the program that allowed you to rotate within different departments of the African Development Bank. So I started off my first rotation at the private sector infrastructure finance team, and we both basically looked at only renewable energy. And I'll talk a little bit about some of the projects that we did. After that first rotation, I went into the energy and ICT department, which kind of looked at mostly sovereign funded, so sovereign guaranteed, sorry. So these are maybe government projects. So government was looking to do a project, and we'll help fund those projects on behalf of government. And then in my third rotation, they had created a new department called just the energy department, which kind of combined both public and private sector operations. So basically, at my whole time at the African Development Bank, I was basically in the energy department. I'm mostly doing renewable energy projects. And it was basically like I felt like I was a kid in a candy store, right? I studied all the projects I was studying in Scotland. I was now working on them in reality, So it was like crazy to have I read about this project, I did some research on this project. Now you're actually working on the project. So it was one of the most amazing experiences that I've ever had, and I would encourage anybody to get similar kinds of exposures from international companies like that, which kind of gives you a little exposure to different things happening across the continent. So whilst I was there, apart from working on projects, I worked on certain initiatives. So they created it was a £5 billion clean technology fund. It was basically a number of different Western countries that came together to put up a fund that was going to help finance clean energy projects across Africa, across the emerging markets, actually, and Africa is just one of them. Then there was the African Development Forum, which was like a forum in Ethiopia. We helped put together the agenda and the program, working with UNECA, and it was a great experience. So again, just sitting down and seeing all the different players in the whole energy and climate change space, what policies are coming out, what frameworks are coming out, what new financing mechanisms are coming out to support renewable energy projects in Africa. The Sustainable Energy Fund for All was basically, and I think it's changed today, but at the time, it was, people who wanted to do renewable energy projects. It was a way of getting some kind of soft money, grants and cheap money, basically, to help prepare the project for scale up and bankability. And the UNSE for All, which is also another initiative of the the United Nations, which basically has a program that says energy is a fundamental human right. Access to energy, access to affordable energy is a human right. So basically, they're looking at of different activities that which they can use to ensure that there's basically broad-based penetration of energy to everybody across the world. So that's basically how expansive this initiative is, and I got to work on some of these things at the African Development Bank. And so on the right of the screen, you'll see some of the great people that I worked with. Donald Kaberuka here was the president of the African Development Bank. He was one that ultimately made the decision for me to go and work with the US government in designing Power Africa. Below him, obviously, you see Lade and our former boss, Hala Sheikruhu, who used to run the energy department. She later left to become the Minister of Power, or Minister of Energy in Tunisia. She's Tunisian national. But now she's working for an energy platform, an energy financing platform in Washington, D.C. Then on the bottom right, there's Bobby Pittman, who used to basically was the vice president and used to head the infrastructure department. And above him is Dr. Shehu Yahaya, who was an executive director representing Nigeria on the board of the African Development Bank. And so these are great relationships that I built during my time at the African Development Bank. They're all mentors to me, each and every one of them, and I still am in touch with some of them till today. So I just want to talk to you about some of the projects I worked in when I was at the AFDB, and again, these are some of the projects I was researching whilst I was a student. But the Lake Turkana wind farm project in Kenya was a 300 megawatt wind farm, and the largest of its size at the time it was being designed. And yeah, this project is now operating. It's one of the landmark renewable energy projects in the continent. Then there's the Bujagali Hydro in Uganda. This was a 320 or 340 megawatt hydropower project. It was one of the great successes in terms of a private financed hydropower project. It's obviously it's been operational now since I think 2012 or 2011. I can't remember the exact dates, but yeah, it's one of those very, very, very important infrastructure projects in Uganda. Basically, people who are on generators, their generators became backup, and the power from the grid became their main source of power. So it was one of the first times where I actually saw the impact instantly, the minute that these these hydro turbines were turned on, and how everybody started thanking God, yeah, we now have power, we don't use our generators anymore. So it was great to actually see the impact, because some of these projects take years to build. It was great to see the impact of what we're actually doing in trying to change the lives of people. The Rusumo project was a regional project. There were 3 countries involved. So the Rusumo Falls basically transcends 3 different borders between Tanzania, Rwanda, and Burundi. So these 3 countries came together to develop this project, and it was great working with all those different governments. Again, this is Power Africa. I used to go for meetings at the US Treasury. So this was one of the initiatives I worked on, Power Africa. And basically, Power Africa was the US government's program to say, look, how can we help support power development in Africa? And so this was basically me working with them to kind of help design that initiative. Geothermal project in Kenya. Again, I have never done anything in geothermal. There are very few countries in Africa that can do geothermal. Kenya is obviously one of them. Probably the most prolific sites are in Ethiopia and in Kenya. And it was just great to see different technology, different, how do we use steam that is stuck under the Earth's crust? How do we harness that steam to generate power and to kind of drive a turbine to generate power? So it was very, very interesting experience. But one of the ones I loved the most working on actually was this Sarah Wind Farm in Cape Town, because the day we had to go to the site to look at the sites and do the appraisal of the project was during the World Cup. I think it was the 2012. I can't remember which one it was. I think it was the 2010 World Cup in South Africa. So when they were sending me to South Africa to go and look at this project, I said, look, you realize that there's a World Cup going on in South Africa, that I'm going to end up spending all my time watching the football. I'm not going to do any work. But my boss was kind enough to say, like, I should just go. So yeah, so we went to the site, we did it, and it was great to see a wind farm and look at how a wind farm is designed. We went to the National Utility of South Africa, were the ones doing the project. But yeah, I got a chance to watch 1 or 2 games live of the World Cup. That's a very memorable experience for me. So that's basically my experience in the renewable energy. So I'm going to go into a next section now. But maybe before I go into that, I wanted to know if anybody has any questions. Or Olade, do you want me to leave all the questions to the end? How do you see that?
Well, a number of people already have said that they have some questions, so it's really up to you. And we have about, I think we can go for another 15 minutes or so. So how do you want to handle it?
So maybe I'll take, if there are maybe 2 or 3 questions now, and then I'll take the rest at the end of the program.
Okay, so Jane, I'll let you facilitate. How do you want to handle the questions?
Okay, so we have questions from Emanuela. Emanuela, are you ready to ask your question? Okay.
Yes,
oh, okay. Okay, can we have your question now? Go ahead with your question. Tell us your name and then ask your question.
Okay, my name is Oshifu Emanuela.
And your age?
My age, I'm 14.
Okay, hello, Emanuela.
So my question to you, sir, is who are your role models and why?
Very good question. So I think the first role model I ever had were in my own family. My family, my grandfather, because my dad died quite young, when I was quite young, I spent some time with my grandparents. And my grandfather was an entrepreneur, right? And he's the kind of person that whenever you hang around, he would always have his, entrepreneurs by their nature, always looking to solve a problem, right? So every time there was an issue, I just remember him always trying to he could come up with 20 different solutions for anybody's problem. So I kind of realized very early on the entrepreneurial spirit, and that basically being an entrepreneur is looking for problems to solve, right? Especially the ones that are difficult to solve, right? Because if it was so easy to solve, everybody would be doing it. So I kind of knew from a very early stage that there's some people who just have a tendency to bring on or to take on difficult challenges and to take risk and to try different things. He had so many different types of businesses. So he was one of my very early role models. I knew from a very, very, very young age I was going to become an entrepreneur. I knew that I was going into a career path that would require me to learn very technical skills, but that ultimately I wanted to be part of doing my own company. So I think my grandfather was one of my role models. I would say another role model for me in my career was, I would say maybe Tosin Runshewe. Tosin was my first boss at when I in GTB, and just the way he forced you to learn, right? He was a treasurer of the bank. He was a treasurer of Guarantee Trust Bank, but he wasn't very, and he was the kind of person that, when I went to GTB's training school, he said to me, Obiora, you have to come do very well. So when I scored, when I got the top grade in accounting in GTB's training program, I was kind of thinking about not disappointing him, because he had kind of invested a lot in me. He was always encouraging us. He would make us read, right? He would force us every month. You had to come and present a book you read. It didn't matter what it was. It could be about dogs. You just had to read, and it just like you broaden your knowledge. And that's something that really stuck with me throughout my career. It's like just gaining knowledge about, and you don't know where you're going to end up. Is usually the things that, because, you know, being able to see around the corner, when I say see around the corner, is to be successful in your job, you have to be able to kind of see trends, see where the kind of markets are heading, where things are moving, where technology is transitioning. And to be able to do that is not only about just knowing very technically about your own field, you kind of have to kind of see how other things are impacting it. So I'll talk about that later in the presentation, but I think he kind of forced me to just broaden my knowledge and read anything. It could be about anything. And so he was one of my role models. So I didn't realize how much time we had. So I'll just kind of run through the rest of the presentation and then we take any questions we have to the end, right? So look, the renewable energy opportunity in Nigeria is significant. It's almost hard to quantify. And the reason why we know how big it is because there are many markets that have big opportunities in renewable energy, but you don't have people in those countries maybe who have the willingness to pay, or people who's basically willingness to pay, right? So you have Nigeria, who generates a lot of its power from expensive diesel generators. Almost everybody in some shape or form has a relationship with a generator, whether you like it or not. And if you look at how much we're spending on generators, there was a report by the Rural Electrification Agency that says Nigerians are spending $14 billion a year, every year, on very expensive diesel. So you're like, wow, if we can just take a portion of that expenditure and put it on sustainable energy, it would not only be beneficial for the environment, it would be beneficial for our health, but it's also great new sector to develop, in terms of the economic impact and economic development. So the opportunity for renewable energy is huge. So this graph, this page basically tells you the different areas. You can have renewable energy as a captive IPP, which means basically if a company like Coca-Cola says, okay, I don't want to get power from Eco Disco or from Ikeja Disco or from the grid. I want to buy power from a private company to sell me power. So you can be a private company generating power to sell to Coca-Cola. Example of a captive IPP. A mini grid is slightly different. A mini grid could be a community, or there's a very good example in the north with the Sabongari markets, where all the different shops within the market are connected to a central grid, right? So instead of everybody generating their own power, which is what was happening, every stall in the market had a small generator, these petrol generators generating power. What did they do? That they connected everybody's shops in the markets, and there were like thousands of shops, into a central generating unit. And so that's what basically the mini grids are. And those mini grids are solar-based. So there are solar systems that are basically integrating those networks. And so there's a lot of support going into these things. The World Bank, the African Development Bank are spending a lot of money to help build these types of mini grids. And you're going to see a lot more of them. And then the third part are the off-grid solar, which is basically what you probably see people putting solar home systems in their own houses with maybe a battery backup or an inverter system. I'm sure you're probably familiar with those systems. And then you maybe pay as you go, you pay based on how much you use, or you pay a monthly fee, or sometimes people decide to buy the whole thing up. There are different models for how you pay for it, but that's also another segment. So one is the household and residential area. One is the commercial and industrial players who are looking. And there's a lot of government policy now who are supporting it. There's a lot of money going to this stuff. So we really think that the opportunity is just going to keep growing in this space. So why is Nigeria good? And I think I've already mentioned why is Nigeria a great place for renewable energy. I think I've already talked a little bit about it. Number one, there's the high potential, right? We have very good solar irradiance level. So we have sun is a hot country, and obviously it's better in certain parts of Nigeria than others. But definitely the opportunity for solar is there. Why? Because we have very high cost of diesel generation. Most of our generation actually comes from diesel. So it is a market that's ready for disruption. Transmission and distribution bottlenecks. Now, the great thing about renewable energy and off-grid is because you can generate power and consume it locally, right? You don't have to build all these huge transmission lines and transmit over long distances. You can do it locally. So it's definitely, and because our transmission networks are also very weak, it also makes the case for renewable very, very strong. Again, this is systems flexibility. So because renewable allows us to, when there's power outage, you could have a renewable energy source common, like how you have your inverter, right? So basically, if the grid goes off, your renewable energy can come on very quickly if you have a solar battery system. And I'll talk a little bit about solar battery systems. But again, renewable energy helps balance the grid. And obviously high resources. A lot of people are now putting these things on their homes. The distribution networks, again, also with like the transmission networks, are very, very strained. So huge potential in Africa. I want to just talk a little bit about this C&I demand segment, right? So these are, and I talked about Coca-Cola. So the Coca-Colas, the Nestle's, the Nigerian breweries, those companies like that whose factories run 24 hours of the day and need power constantly, right? So there's a huge market. I think some research by a company that we know called EOS, they estimated it at $160 billion industry, right? So there's a huge demand for a lot of companies, and we're actually working on a particular project now where the customer, the client, is building a multi-purpose complex and wants his own power to be sold directly to him. He doesn't want to rely on Echo Disco or the grid, so he wants his own independent power because his operations are going to be 24 hours of the day, and he wants to be having reliable and affordable power, and doesn't want the whole diesel thing. So there's a huge opportunity there. So this basically just tells you a little bit about how the solar battery systems can work. Obviously your solar panel, you know what those are. You put them on your roofs or anywhere that can get good exposure to sunlight. Those are usually connected to a battery charged from solar. That tells you how you charge your batteries. It's connected to a battery system because the energy that's generated is direct current. I won't go into the technicalities, but it's a DC current that comes out of the solar panels. It needs to go through an inverter to kind of convert it to alternating currents, and alternating currents are basically what you basically use in your homes, right? So you need a way to invert that power from DC to AC to be able to be usable in your house. So you can generate power from solar panels and connect it straight into your home, or you could store it in a battery system also in DC and then use it whenever you need it. Whenever you need it. So there's a huge opportunity in these battery systems and solar systems. There's huge opportunities for, so basically the solutions that they're looking for are solutions around equipment, services, so engineering services, project development services, financing services, installation, commissioning services, and operational services. Those are basically where the technical services and opportunities are in renewable energy. And people are looking for solutions. So they don't want you to just come only with engineering or just with the project development or just with the financing. They want a whole solution. So really, there's such a huge area to learn on. So whether you're from financing or whether you're from engineering, installation, commission, operation support, there's a huge opportunity to play a role in this very expanding growth markets. And these are some companies that are in this space. I just kind of listed a few of them: Rensource, Olon, Energy, Ulu, Royal Power, Daystar. They all do solar home systems for both industrial and commercial and residential types of clients. And these are companies that I think you should look up later and kind of see what they do and maybe try and get an internship there or try and do something with them. It would be great as well. So just to summarize, and I'm a bit rushing, key learning steps: be ready for adventure, like the way I went to Tunisia, the African Development Bank. Be ready to go for adventure. Find mentors in your area of interest. A good question was asked about mentorship and who are my mentors. You need to find mentors and you need to be close to them and help and learn from them, because that's one of the best ways to actually learn. Go to project sites if you can, travel, ask questions, be flexible. You don't know where you're going to end up. I went into doing oil and gas, I ended up in power. So you have to also be ready to adapt and go where the markets or where the global economy is moving. Learn a different language. This is because I struggled with this. Lade is laughing, but she knows. Because this problem is not only unique to Nigeria, the problem is global. So if you can speak French or Mandarin or Spanish in a different language, you find out you can work in many more countries than I could. I could only work in English-speaking countries. And I found out that people like Lade, who did very, very well, were able to work in any country because she's multilingual, speaks French, Italian, English, and everything. So trying to learn a different language, you find out very, very useful. Learn about sustainable development goals. It's important because almost everything you're doing in sustainable today is part of this sustainable development goals. Somebody's going to ask you about what are the sustainable development goals. You should have an answer. Somebody who just kind of wants to be interested in this sector, you should kind of know what they are. SDG 7 is the one that really speaks to the energy sector. So you should kind of at least look it up and read. And then finally, throughout my career, right, even though I ended up more in financing and accounting, I always ended up in a project company or an engineering company or a industrial company. The most important people were always people with STEM background. To understand how to finance power projects, you have to understand the technical aspects of those power projects. So I found that the best people who were, even the best finance people, started off as engineers, right? So I think people who have a STEM background are definitely those who are going to excel the most in looking at project finance and development. So thank you all very much for listening in. And if we have any more time, I'll take any questions you have.
So I know we are over time. Thank you so much, Obi, for that. But I think we can go for another 20 minutes. This has been very exciting. There are already a lot of questions. People have been typing questions, but I want to make sure I'm not speaking for anyone. So I will hand it back to Jane. You can ask each of these students to ask their questions directly. And we can go for another 20 or 30 minutes, I think.
Okay. Thank you very much, sir, for sharing your story. I'll start with Uchechi. She has a very interesting question, so I'll leave it to her to ask her question. Uchechi, please ask your question. Tell us your name and then your age.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Uchechi Mary. Thank you, sir, for sharing your story. You had an advice from your uncle and from your economics professor. In Nigeria, we don't always have this type of guidance. Where can I get guidance on what to study? Like, you changed from physics and architecture. My parents want me to study something, but I may not have another interest. What should I do? That's my first question. My second question is, how many projects have you founded apart from the Blackaion Capital Management? My second question, why did you aspire to work as an investor in energy and infrastructure? And my third and final question, what were the challenges you faced while working as an investor in energy? Thank you.
Those are very fully loaded questions, Uchechi.
Sorry, before we go on, Uchechi, please, you need to learn how to boast a little bit. Tell him about your renewable energy essay with UNESCO. So she just got a very impressive award. So please tell him. I'm sure he'll be very proud of you. Tell him about the UNESCO essay.
Okay, I was privileged to be part of a worldwide program where we collaborated with about 22 students abroad to write an essay about energy and issues concerning energy, the energy justice and energy transition. So we were divided into groups where I was in the essay group, and then I wrote about what type of energy we use in Nigeria and the issues concerning them.
Fantastic. And what was the award exactly? So it was like a first prize award, or what was the award?
I was able to talk to the senators of Canada and professors from the University of Alberta. Then we published our essay was given to them.
Fantastic. Well,
and what about Portugal? Tell the whole story.
Okay, yes, we would have traveled to Portugal, but due to the COVID-19, we were not able to do that. But we also traveled to Spain, Poland too. But this year we couldn't go because of the COVID-19.
Yeah. Well, that's a shame. But I'm sure.
Hello, did we lose Obi? Can you hear him?
No, he's still on the call. I think, okay.
All right, you're
Can
back.
you hear me?
Yeah, you're back. You froze for a bit.
Yeah, sorry. So, well, congratulations, and I'm hoping you get a chance to travel. I know that COVID-19 is impacting everybody in one way or the other. But I think your questions are very, very good questions. They're loaded, like I mentioned. But I'll start with the first one, right, about guidance. To be honest with you, the way I looked at it in my own career was I had family members who were giving me guidance, but not necessarily the best guidance for me. They tried to fit me into what they wanted for themselves. Right, my grandfather wanted an architect in the family, and at some point I felt doing architecture was for him, not for me. And ultimately, I sometimes your report card tells a lot of stories, right? So the subjects that I did well in with the least effort means I actually enjoy studying it. So mathematics, economics, business studies, geography, things like that. I just really enjoyed studying it naturally. I didn't need to spend a lot of time. Physics, chemistry, biology, I enjoyed what they meant. It's like I
think you froze again.
Hello?
Yes, we can hear you, sir.
Yeah. So basically, what I was saying was that my guidance partly was informed by what I was good at. But also, I was lucky to have certain teachers who just kind of knew how to kind of pull out the best in you, kind of see what you're interested in. They kind of tell you, they were able to kind of say, okay, look, based on your interests, we can tell you you're good in economics, you enjoy joining the debating societies. It's like how I felt with art, right? I used to just draw. Nobody told me you had to do it. It was something you do. So I think partly you have to find out what you enjoy doing and what you do naturally without people pushing you. And I think definitely you should always try and find somebody in the field that you're looking at that's of interest. So if you said, okay, I don't have a mentor, you might have your parents' friends, you might have a family member, you might have a friend whose parents are. You can find mentors anywhere. The Visiola Foundation is also here for these types of things, right? So you have a lot of resources. I think the onus, ultimately in this life, the onus is on you. The responsibility is on you to find a mentor and ask. If you don't have a mentor, you can ask, okay, where can I find a mentor? Who can I be a mentor? This is what I'm interested in. Can I get some guidance? I'm happy to help. I know the Visiola Foundation is happy to help you think through how you should steer your career path. So you asked me another question about how many investments are done at Blackaion. So Blackaion is actually a company. The company was started last year. Since we started the company, we are currently developing about 4 or 5 projects. One of them is a waste recycling project in phase 1. In phase 2, you might have a power element, so waste to power, but we're still starting off with the waste recycling project. Another project we're working on is a LPG logistics project. So we're looking at doing LPG blending and transportation. Again, LPG is much more environmentally friendly than using diesel. So we're trying to see if we can blend LPG for a transportation project. Another project we're working on is solar. So there's a project in Kano that they were looking to do a solar project to distribute that solar to a few industrial companies in Kano. So we're talking to the Kano State government and the Kano State distribution company to kind of push that project forward. So those are some of the things that we're working on as part of Blackaion. Also, there's certain things in financial infrastructure that we're also looking at, but that's I won't go into that. You asked me, what are the challenges of investing? I think the biggest challenge of investing is you don't have projects that are well structured coming to you, right? So you have a lot of people who want to do projects, but because of their lack of understanding or experience, a lot of the projects you find are not well structured, right? So why one of the skill sets out there and a huge opportunity out there, I think probably the biggest opportunity out there is to learn how to structure projects well, both from a technical perspective, a financial perspective, and environmental sustainable perspective. If you can figure out, if you can learn these three elements and build it into the initial design of your project, you'll find out that most people are going to, the issue is not money. There's a lot of money out there ready to finance projects. The problem is there's not enough well-structured projects coming out for these financiers to invest in. So part of my job was, and why I wanted to do what I'm doing now, is I wanted to help structure these projects in a bankable way. Structure these projects in a way that once the financer will see it, they're like, yes, this is exactly what we're looking for. They check all the boxes. We want to invest. So I think there's a huge opportunity to work in the early stage of designing projects so that they're sustainable and bankable. Sorry, did I miss any of your questions? I think I got most of them.
Yeah, I think you answered all her questions.
All right, great.
Yes, so we have another question from Jesu Yimika. Jesu Yimika, please go ahead and ask your question.
Okay, good afternoon.
Please tell us your name and your age. Can you speak a little bit louder?
Okay, my name is Jesse Luka. I'm 16 years old. My question, I have two questions. The first question is, what advice would you give to your younger self at the start of your career? Then the next question is, so initially when you started off, you went into the renewable energy sector. But along the line, so you went into it. So do you also, when we start off that career, do you have to go into other areas? Then that's for that. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, so did you get those questions? I struggled to hear.
Yes, okay. I did. So the first question she asks is, what advice would you give to your younger self? And then the second question is, she mentioned that you talked about moving from one career to another. Like you studied accountancy in college, and then you moved to renewable energy sector. In her own case, if she wants to switch, is it possible for her to do so, and how can she go about it?
Okay, so those are two great questions, Yimika. I think the first question is, what will I advise myself? I think the first question, one of the few things I would say to my younger self is, first of all, don't try and box yourself into anything at a young age, all right? I think at a young age, you want to try as many things as possible because you don't really know what you might like more than something else. And I think I started off saying I'm a finance person or I'm a petroleum person. And then I might have done the switch. Maybe I could have done the switch earlier than I did, right? I did switch, but maybe I could have done it earlier. And so not maybe wasted some time doing something else I found out that was not necessarily relevant for what I was interested in. So try as many things as possible. Don't be afraid and try and box yourself and say, no, I'm this. So because of that, I'm not going to try and learn about something else. No, try and expose yourself to as many opportunities and as many different learning opportunities as possible. So that's one of the things I'll say. The second question was about the switch, right? So it's like, the thing about renewable energy is like it's so interconnected, right? So in one of the slides I showed, maybe I can go back to it. I said, so this is, for example, for a solar battery project. You have engineering, you have project development, you have financing, you have installation, you have operations, right? So you have, if you look at point one, you have cost benefit analysis and audits. These are usually done by financial people. You might have these are done by engineers and engineering designers. Project financing, again, your financing guys, installation, technical. So you have, is multidisciplinary, right? So lawyers, engineers, financiers, government people, and that's one of the things I love about this sector. there's so many professions that are needed to come together to make it work. So to be honest with you, if you're interested in this sector, you could start off in engineering and end up in finance. You could start off with finance and end up in an engineering role. You could do project development, which kind of combines a little bit of engineering and finance and legal. And so it's always, as long as you're working in an area you like, and if you're in renewable energy, there's so many different aspects of it that you can work on. I spent years doing contract work that I thought I didn't really like, but I spent a lot of time today doing contract work, learning about power purchase agreements, learning about land agreements, learning about operations and maintenance agreements, and these are all parts of the whole project development phase. But to be good at project development, you have to have understood finance. You have to maybe understood law. And you certainly need to understand some engineering and technical aspects. So the idea is that it's just by exposing yourself to as many different things as possible, you start to find out what really interests you or not. And sometimes they say that your heart always drives you where you want to go. Ultimately, you know what you like to do. You know what you're interested in. I went to school to my master's to do petroleum and economics. I ended up finding about power. It's just so interesting. It was just so interesting to me, and I just could not learn enough that I said, okay, I need to go and find a company to work on, continue to do this. So I think ultimately you will know. You will know. It's hard to tell you when that point will be, but you will kind of know eventually. But I think the best way is just keep your mind open and just try different things, and then it'll be easy for you to find out yourself. Okay.
Okay, thank you very much, sir. We have another question from Mary Ann. Mary Ann, please ask your question. Tell us your name and your age. Hello, Mary Ann. Okay. Yes, please go ahead.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Miriam, and I'm 13 years old. For my first question, I was asking about those who are not able to get advices from their elders. What advice do you have for them for their career? And for my second question, what is sustainability and why is it important to them? Thank you.
Okay, so hi, Marianne. I don't know, you're the youngest person so far that we've spoken to, but it's also great that you're thinking about your career and you're thinking about the future. It's a great sign. So that's a good question. The first answer I'll say is that there's always some adult somewhere that can give you advice, right? It might not be in your immediate family. It might not be your brother, sister, your parents. And I think at your age, you're relying a lot on your parents' advice and guidance. But I think, can somebody put their mute their mic? I think, as I mentioned earlier, that there are a lot of different groups, NGOs, foundations, Visiola being one of them, that can kind of help you think around, what does a career in STEM field look like, right? And this talk we're having is also part of that advice that we're trying to give out, right? So about adventure, be ready to take risks, be ready to learn different things. The foundation can be a mentor. You might find a mentor in your church. You can find, I think a lot of us tend to kind of restrict our mentors to our parents or immediate family, but in the way you interact, either it's through church or your lessons or, family, friends, you could find a mentor somewhere. And I think ultimately, and maybe you're a bit young to be going out around looking for mentors, but generally the way the world works usually is up to you to find that mentor. The mentors I've found, usually, the mentors that are the best want to see the hunger in you to learn something from them, right? If you want to be spoon-fed stuff, usually mentors are very busy, right? They don't want to spoon feed people. They want to see that somebody is so eager to learn and wants to really go into something, and they are looking for your help to help them bridge that gap. So you find a lot of mentors who are ready to be available if they see you are very keen as well. So, you know, I think that's one of the things I would say. You know, if you show a lot of interest, you're very keen, you do a lot of your own homework before coming to somebody and say, hey, look, this is what I've done. I've done A, B, C, D. I've researched this. I've looked into this. I need some guidance. Then that shows that you're serious. So I think you know, there are mentors out there, as long as you also show from your own part that this is an area you're very interested in and you want to go in, and that you've already studied this, or you've already researched this, you want to know more. You know, so that's the advice I'll give you about that. And the second question is, why is sustainability important? Now, that's a very good question. And I think the idea is that, are we as humanity creating irreparable damage to the planet? You know, what kind of future are we living for this planet? You know, what are the impacts of what are the long-term impacts of climate change? What is happening to the increase in temperature, the ice, the solar, the poles, right? The North and South poles are being impacted. You know, the ice belts are melting. Water levels are rising. How's that going to impact, you know, agriculture? How is it going to impact our oceans? How is it going to impact our health? So I think the idea is that the way we are such a huge consumer-based economy, global economy, do things without necessarily thinking about the cost of what we're doing, right? So we're trying to get benefits today for costs that other people, our children and children's children, are going to bear in the future. So the world there's an imbalance between human activity and our environment. So we need to kind of align. That's what sustainability is. It's just basically creating greater alignment between human behavior, human activity, and the environment, so that our children and children's children can also enjoy the world the way we are, right? So that's why sustainability is a big issue. And that's why if you're going into energy today, oil and gas or hydrocarbons, coal, these types of technologies are no longer, you know, being supported because they really damage the environment and they damage your health at the same time. So I think it's important that we leave a world in a better place than we found it. So that's the whole idea of sustainability. And the truth of the matter is that we can do it. It's not impossible. You know, I was talking about recycling the other day. Whenever these plastics that you see, right? How we dispose of plastics is very, very important, because these plastics will enter. You find them in your gutter, on the streets. They are in most of the drainage issues we have in Nigeria is because of plastics and polythene and all these different plastics entering gutters, water systems, and waste. So there are so many ways of how we can manage our waste better and in a more sustainable way, so that our waste is actually captured and recycled to create more bottles. I'm working on a project right now where this bottle can be recycled to create the same bottle without it ending in the ocean or ending in the gutter or ending in a place that's not degradable. So the whole thing is that, can we create and consume in a way which keeps less impact on the environment? So that's the whole idea of sustainability. I think it's a very important. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. The next question is from Sekinat. Sekinat, please unmute yourself and ask your question.
And please also, we're trying to get these girls to learn how to promote themselves a little bit. So Sekinat, please tell them about the awesome things that you've been doing and all the programs you've been accepted to before you ask your question.
Good day, everyone.
Good day.
My name is Sekinat, and I'm 22.
Hi, Sekinat.
Okay, I was at the Visiola Coding Boot Camp in 2019 last year, where I won the Most Helpful Student Award. And after then, I've been volunteering with the Visiola Foundation as an instructor in all the programs, both Coding Boot Camp and the summer camp. And I'm also a podcast host. I went into content development early this year and just finished. I rounded up my 3-month internship at Noble Herald Research Company. And I'm also currently on the Remy Initiative Leadership for Women in Africa program I was supposed to hold in Ghana this year, but due to the COVID-19 pandemic, we're holding a leadership conference virtually. And I've also, I'm a junior developer as well.
Wow. 22-year-old, definitely more busy than I was when I was 22.
Yeah, I'm go straight to my question. Thank you, sir. My question is, why does Nigeria still have electricity problems, and how can we fix this? Because I would say I am directly affected because of most of my work. I'm supposed to be online most of the time, and because we have electricity issues, it's putting a hold. It's holding me back from giving my all to my work. So most times my work is delayed, but I have to build up extra effort to make sure that I deliver to my clients on time. So that's the reason for this question. Like, how possible is it to fix the electricity problems in Nigeria with renewable energy? Thank you.
Yeah, it is a very good question, and honestly, when we do finally fix the problem, because I believe it's fixable, whoever is involved in fixing the problem is going to become the multi-billionaire. Can somebody put their mic on mute? Not that the voice was good, but yeah. So you asked a very, very important question. I mean, this is the whole reason why a lot of us get into this sector. The truth of the matter is, part of it has to start off with the government. For almost 30, 40 years, I mean, a lot of the power systems in Nigeria today, a lot of them, was built in the 60s and 70s. And for 30 plus years, there was very, very little investment in the power sector. So that's the first part of the answer to your question. Lack of investment over such a long time. In 2012, 2013, the government decided to privatize most of the power assets. So they broke up, then we had what they called PHCN or NEPA, and they now broke it up into generation companies, distribution companies, and then the transmission in the middle. So what happened was that now you're going from a integrated utility where government owned everything to a sort of broken. Well, when I say broken, I mean you're going from an integrated utility to a sector where you have different segments of the chain. Your generation companies are separate from your transmission company, which is separate, and your distribution company, which is separate. And today, the biggest challenge we're having is coordination. The generation companies, the distribution companies, and the transmission companies are not coordinated. So lack of coordination, I'll say, is the biggest challenge that we have. So to invest in generation, you have to coordinate with transmission and distribution. To invest in distribution, you need to coordinate. So it's like all the different segments are sort of moving in their own speed and their own direction without fully coordinating themselves, and you cannot have a value chain that is not coordinated. Once that value chain is broken, you're going to have a problem. So I think to just say it simply, the biggest problem we have today is just lack of coordination of the value chain. And so I think what the government is trying to do is trying to fix the coordination problem, trying to have better alignment of the various contracts that goes on in the different segments of the value chain. But it's going to take time, and it's going to take a long time for everything to resolve, which is why renewable energy plays such an important role. Because first of all, because of the way renewable energy can be localized. You can have an isolated grid, or you can support local demand, right? You don't need to be waiting for transmission lines and distribution lines to be built to supply you power. You can generate at your site of need. So I think, honestly, given the scale of the problem, it's going to take years. And remember, fixing the problem is also a political issue, right? At every election, every government you've probably had election will promise you we're going to fix power, fix power. It's not like they don't want to. It's just that the challenge is so huge. They have limited resources. There's only amount of money because the government has competing needs. They have healthcare issues. They have education problems. They have so many different areas of the economy need help. So there's only a certain amount of money can channel to fixing the power problem. So because of that, the private sector is saying, okay, look, why do we even need to build all these humongous infrastructures? Why can't we build renewable energy systems that are localized to the point of the need? And so that's why I think the opportunity is great, and it's going to be great. I think ultimately, renewable energy is going to grow so quickly that the government will never need to make that huge investment in the end, because it would have been taken up, that demand would have been taken up by renewable energy. So I think renewable energy is ultimately going to disrupt the grid in the long term.
Thank you very much, sir, for answering those questions. Emanuela has been raising up her hand. So Emanuela, please go ahead and ask your question. Tell us your name and then your age.
My name is Emanuela and I'm 14. My question is that, what are all the renewable energy sources in Nigeria, and have you been developing or investing in these projects?
So in Nigeria, I'll say the ones that are the most obvious ones, and the one where we have a lot of opportunities in solar. Obviously, you know that renewable can be wind, it can be solar, it can be biofuels, it can be hydro. I think those are the ones that really we think about in Nigeria. Waste to energy could be another one. But I think where you see a lot of penetration today is in solar power, because Nigeria is a hot country, we're a tropical country, so we have good sunlight, especially in the from the mid belts to the northern states. So those are where there's a great opportunity. But you're beginning to see a lot, and you're going to start hearing a lot more about recycling, because there was just recently a new global initiative on recycling, and they're now really looking to promote, especially around plastics, because plastics again is linked to the oil and gas industry. Plastics are made is made from one of the industrial processes in the oil and gas value chain. So you're basically seeing a lot of drive to kind of do recycling, and we're now seeing a lot of people trying to do waste to power projects, which is basically taking non-biodegradable waste and either incinerating it to generate power, or looking at compost or other forms of waste to power. So I think you're going to start seeing a little bit of that. Hydro is already a big thing in Nigeria. We have quite a number of large and small scale hydropower projects. Kayinji and Jeba are some, Shiroro are some of the big hydro projects that I'm sure you hear about. Obviously, we have good rain throughout some parts of the year. So you're going to probably also see, I know a few people who are trying to develop some small and mini hydropower projects as well. From our own perspective, we're mostly focusing on financing solar projects and doing solar as a service. And I explain solar as a service. Solar as a service means you, Emanuela, you want solar in your house. You don't want to have to go and buy the solar panels and buy the solar batteries and the inverters. You want a company to just come and do everything for you, and they'll just charge you a fee at the end of the month, right? So that's what we're looking at with one particular client, where they just said they're not a power company, they don't want to be managing diesel generators and power plants, and that's not what their business is. They wanted somebody to come and just do everything for them and charge a monthly fee. So that's what we call power or solar as a service, and we're looking to do something like that. So yes, we invest in those types of opportunities.
Okay, so we have two more questions, and then Uchechi will talk about her experience in December camp, the project she built, because the theme of the camp was a renewable future. So they'll ask their questions now. The questions are from Elizabeth and Flourish. They'll both ask the question and then you can take the answers together.
Okay.
Elizabeth, please go ahead and ask a question. Tell us your name and your age. Elizabeth, are you there? Okay, Flourish, can you ask a question now?
My name is Elizabeth. I wanted to ask if
Elizabeth, can you speak a little bit louder? Your voice is not quite clear.
okay, can you hear me?
Yes, please go
Good
ahead.
afternoon, everyone. My name is Elizabeth, and I'm 15. I wanted to ask that what are your success habits? And second one, what is the biggest factor that has helped you to become successful?
Okay.
Jane, yeah.
Okay, let me repeat the question. She asked, what are your success habits and what is the biggest factor that's helped you become successful? Flourish, please ask your question. Hello, Flourish, are you there? Flourish, please unmute yourself and ask a question. I can see you.
Hey everyone, I'm Flourish. I'm 16 years old. So I was asking that what were your biggest success habit and your biggest challenges, and how did you overcome them? And also what is sustainability and how is it important for us in Nigeria?
Oh, okay. I think those questions have been answered. And the first question you asked, it's similar to the one Elizabeth asked. So you just answer everything now.
Maybe instead of success, so in addition to success, also your biggest challenge, in your career, and how you overcame it. I think that's also a good question to talk about.
Okay, so great questions, Elizabeth and Flourish. Actually, you're asking a question that I always ask myself, and I was always asking when I was younger. What are your biggest success habits? And which of those habits have helped you become successful? I'm actually happy you asked that question because that's something that I always ask people when I meet them. I just want to know what their own answer is. So I'm glad you asked that question. And I'll tell you one of the things that or maybe two of the habits I think around. The first one I would say is around commitment. Right? I find that people who are committed usually end up successful, and I'll explain to you what I mean by committed. There's some people, I think in Nigeria we say something like, I don't know exactly how the saying goes, but whatever you're doing, do your best work. Whatever you're doing, do your best work. A lot of times people do something as a stepping stone to do something else. So what they're doing now is not really what they want to do. It's just a stepping stone for something else. But what you're doing now is what people are seeing, right? So because this is just a stepping stone, you might not be doing it with energy, you might not be doing it with passion, but some people are seeing that you're not doing that thing with passion. They can see that you're not doing that thing with energy. They just don't feel like you're committed. So one thing I would say is that whatever you're doing, even if it's a stepping stone to something else, do it to the best of your ability. Do it with passion, because sometimes your passion and your energy is what people see, right? We work in a global economy. There are a lot of people who are smart. There are a lot of people who are doing it, but not everybody has the same personality. Not everybody has the same passion. So one thing I'll say is, I've always seen people who have succeeded are people who, whatever they're doing, even if it's just a temporary thing, an internship, whatever it is, they just do it to the best of their ability, and people notice that. And you don't even know when the people are noticing that. So that's the first thing I would say as a successful habit. Another one I usually say is about being honest and truthful, right? Now, there's a saying that goes, if you do business with, or if you do business or keep relationships with good people, right, you might not need a contract. If you do business with good people, bad people, a contract won't save you. what that means generally is always try to do, before you do anything with people, obviously do your research, do your due diligence, but make sure you're doing things with people who are good, people who will build you, people who challenge you, right? So I think, you know, the kind of company you keep and the kind of people you want to engage with, don't just engage with anybody, because people can just suck your energy and just be very, very negative. Try and always hang around with people who are very positive, who have a lot of energy, people who want to learn, because they'll force you to be like that. And that's one of the things I learned from actually going to the African Development Bank and meeting people like Lade. They forced me to be better. And I didn't even know how much better I could be until I started seeing other people excel at a very, very high standard. So you should always want to put yourselves in a group of people who are high achievers, because it also forces you to be a high achiever. Then the question was about my biggest challenge. You know, I would say I've had maybe a few, maybe a couple of challenges. One, I would say your family can be a challenge, right? Your family can be a challenge. Your family wants you to do something else that's not something you're interested in. Some people's parents feel like once they give birth to you, they are right to tell you everything you need to do. But I think ultimately you need to find a way to break out of that. I think ultimately your life is for you, and not for your parents. Your parents have lived their own lives, and so you need to find a respectful way to do what you want to do. And even if that sometimes means bringing in somebody that is more senior than you to help talk to your parents for you, get somebody who they respect as well to see your own views, can help as well. So I think I had a little bit of that challenge growing up. Luckily for me, we were sent to the UK to study A-levels. So I broke away from some of my family members who wanted me to be an architect and did my own thing. But I know that's not easy. So that's one of the challenges I had. And luckily I had a mother who was understanding, that allowed me to do what I wanted to do eventually. So that's one challenge. Another challenge is your environment can be a challenge, right? You're working in Nigeria where people are sometimes shady, people want to cut corners, people are not very honest, people want to cheat. That is life, and you'll probably come across that many, many, many times in your careers, whether it's in cheating in exams or cheating in, you know, that was one of the biggest challenges. And I'll give you a quick story. When I was in Guarantee Trust Bank, starting my career, to join the bank, you needed to do exams. In accounting, I told you I came first in accounting, but in accounting, finance, computer science, they had about 10 different subjects which you had to pass before you can become a staff. And because I had come back from the UK, I didn't really understand the whole cheating thing, but it seems as if cheating was something that was such a normal thing to do, that during the exams, people were cheating. And I was like shocked at the way that it was very, 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 you know, pervasive. Everybody was doing it. And I was like saying to them that, look, when you come into the Guarantee Trust Bank, you don't want everybody to know that you cheated your way to coming here. They will not respect you. You want your peers to know that this guy worked hard, did well, and got into the bank, and that you deserve to be there because you worked hard, not because you cheated. Because let me tell you, it will always come back to haunt you. And this is exactly what happened. I got the invigilators to swap everybody around, because you know how people want to cheat, they sit next to each other, they got a situation where I swapped everybody around. Unfortunately, in the swapping, some people still end up sitting next to each other and cheating. It happened so that almost 8 months after they got a job to work in Guarantee Trust Bank, they still found out that their papers, I think they were trying to review some papers or use some papers as examples, and found out 2 people who had cheated and got into the bank had cheated. So this is 8 months after they had started a career in a bank. They now called them up and said, we found out that you cheated in your exam, you're going to be kicked out. So the truth of the matter is, you have to, so it's a challenge where even if everybody around you is doing something wrong, you have to stand for certain principles. And you have to know what those principles are. Because if you don't know if you don't stand for principles and if you don't live by certain principles, you will be swayed by whatever is happening around you. If people are cheating, you will cheat. If people are stealing, you will steal. If people are lying, you will lie. You have to have your own principles and stand by them, regardless of what's going on around you. And what I've learned is that it always comes back to bite you in the end, in any case. So with that, that's the final advice I can give you. I hope you found it useful. And it was lovely talking to each and every one of you.
Thank you so much. I think Jane, we may have lost her, but thank you so much, Obi, for your time. This has been very insightful, educational, and also inspiring. I've also been furiously taking notes. I have like 2 pages of notes myself. We really appreciate you taking the time. It's important for students to be able to speak to people in industry. First, so they understand that there are many opportunities, but also that people who succeed are just like them. You know, you're normal, you know, you have family, you had issues that you had to deal with, you had pressures from your family, you changed courses, you know, you started wanting to study one thing and then you found something else. So these are things that happen to everybody. So we're trying to normalize success. All of you have different stories, but I'm sure you can relate to many of the things that Mr. Obi has shared with us this afternoon. So hopefully you're all encouraged, inspired, and you will take to heart the advice that he's given. I want to reiterate a couple of things that you said. Principles, exactly what you said. In Nigeria, I think we've gotten to the point where we've lost our values. You cannot succeed in life if you're not principled. You need to have values, ethics, and integrity. If everybody is cheating around you, you should be the only person that they know. If you want one person who's going to be honest and not cheat, it is Emanuela, it is Flourish, it is Elizabeth, it is Sakinat, it's all of you on this line. In the long run, it does not pay. Eventually, it will come back to bite you, as Mr. Obi has already told us. He talked about putting yourself out there, taking risks, trying to do new things. He never thought he would go work in North Africa, but it turned out to be a really good experience. So look for opportunities and don't be afraid to try. I really like the idea of, you know, reading. Knowledge is important. We talk about that at the Visiola Foundation. We try to make you do some research. Some of you complain, but it's really good to read and to be knowledgeable about many different things, because you just never know where that information and knowledge might come in useful. The other thing he talked about is also surrounding yourselves with people who motivate you, who are high achievers, doing your best in whatever you do. That's something that we push you at the Visiola Foundation. I know I have a reputation for trying to push people to do things and come outside of their comfort zones, but ultimately that's how you grow and that's how you become better. And nobody has to get it right from the very beginning. You can learn over time and become better. So we want to always push you to try new things. And just also don't be afraid. You know, we're trying to build your confidence. We know that some of you come from difficult backgrounds and families where maybe you're boxed in to certain things, but hopefully, you know, as we continue to work with you, we can help you to overcome some of the insecurities that you have and other challenges that might prevent you from really maximizing your potential. So Obi, again, thank you so much. This has been fantastic. I do want to give Uchechi the last word. If you can just in 1 minute talk about your experience at the December STEM camp and also some of the projects that you worked on, because we focused on renewable energy. So they actually built some prototypes, solar powered, that worked. So Uchechi, you have the floor. Please talk about that experience.
Okay, at the last camp in December, our theme was a renewable future. We talked about renewable energy and transition to renewable energy, like solar and wind. And I had the opportunity to build a power project. In my group, we made a prototype wind turbine that can help farmers to power their lights and equipment while using an environmental friendly device. Thank you.
Fantastic. Fantastic. Great. I mean, look, you know, that's innovation. That's really innovation. And that's, you're really trying to solve a problem. So, like I said, you know, the most successful people are people who can find a way to solve a problem. So you're on the right track anyway.
Excellent. So on that note, I guess we can say a big thank you to Mr. Obi. Everybody unmute yourself, say a big thank you. And I hope you enjoyed the long weekend and please continue to stay safe. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Lade. Great.
Thank you very much, sir.
All right. Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.